Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Governor Hogan and local officials point fingers at one another over botched COVID-19 vaccination process. Montgomery County plans to allow indoor dining for its restaurants, but the restaurants are scratching their heads over the plan itself. DC public schools to reopen safely this week. Loudoun and Fairfax not far behind. Why can't MCPS? And a petition to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by education activist Cynthia Rubenstein and Linda Willard, a member of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Governor Larry Hogan delivered his State of the State message on Wednesday, and he cautioned all Marylanders that the best hope for bringing the coronavirus pandemic to an end is through vaccinations, but that it will be a long and difficult journey to get everyone vaccinated. Immediately afterwards, the Baltimore Sun accused the Hogan administration's rollout on the coronavirus vaccine as slow and confusing. This criticism was reiterated by County Executive Mark Elrich, who complained that Montgomery County has an excellent plan in place, but is hampered by the lack of supply given it by the state. Cynthia, has Hogan bungled the vaccine rollout as Montgomery County Delegate Eric Ludke claims?
Well, there's a lot of frustration out there. And one of the problems with the way that the vaccination rollout has started is that it's extremely decentralized. So for instance, in Montgomery County, the health department is getting vaccines and they have one way of distributing them to a certain parts of the population. Private healthcare facilities have another way, hospitals have another way. The sign-up process is confusing. The technology is allowing people who are not qualified and who are not in the approved groups to pre-register and re-register and re-register. So it is really, really confusing, and the state as well as localities need to get their arms around this and figure out how to make it more efficient and to make the registration process more streamlined and equitable.
But wasn't the idea of having multiple vendors the idea that it would be more available to all Montgomery County residents? Wasn't that the original idea in place?
That is the original idea, but when you have hospitals where, say an adult who's 60 years old has no underlying health conditions and somehow signs up to go to White Oak and then gets there and their appointment is canceled because they're not a healthcare worker, then that's not the way to go. There has to be a sign-up system that is technologically corresponds to what is allowed. So okay. The technology isn't working, and the different criteria based on who has vaccines is also extremely confusing. But
I want to go to I got to go to Linda. We're running out of time on this segment, Cynthia. Thank you. So Linda, Cynthia brought up the issue of equitable distribution of the vaccine, and Senate President Bill Ferguson was critical of Governor Hogan for not addressing how the pandemic has hit some Marylanders worse than others, including the rate of infection and deaths among people of color that are disproportionate to their population. So is it a problem in the system, or is it a problem in that we don't have an ability to be more equitable in how this is distributed?
I fully agree with the sentiment of equitable distribution, and I agree that the communities of color and lower socioeconomic standing are hardest hit by the coronavirus. However, we do not have the luxury to craft an equitable distribution or a more equitable distribution system simply because we don't have the supply right now. We've only vaccinated in this county 7%, if that, of our population. and we're losing time. And the few meetings I've attended that the council has held, they've pointed fingers at the Hogan administration, and then the Hogan administration points fingers back. I'm, tired of our leaders kind of doing that, and we need to up supply, and also, as Cynthia mentioned, create a more, kind of clear technological database by which, and distribution system, and that's not in existence. So we don't have the luxury of going to equity right now.
Yeah, and bottom line, Linda put her finger on it. There's not enough supply, and so people are literally fighting each other to get vaccinations. We're pitting teachers against healthcare workers, against 75-year-olds, against people who work in elder care and nursing home residents. We have 3 categories in phase 1 that are open for either pre-registration or vaccinations, and people are just, it's like Lord of the Flies.
Well, I will say that I'm in that 1C category, which opened up this past Monday, and I registered on the county's website, and I've heard crickets since then. And I've also gone to several other separate vendors to see if there are doses available. If you are aggressive about seeking out the vaccine, you probably can find it, but you got to really look for it, and you've got to look at multiple websites in order to find it. And frankly, I don't know if people have that much time to spend, getting on the giant food website at noon, and then again at 3, and then early in the morning. It's literally chaotic, and fortunately, I hope everybody can get it in due course. We got to wrap up and go to our next topic, which is even more fun, which is restaurant policy, which has been a constant aggravation throughout the last 12 months. And responding to criticism by the Restaurant Association of Maryland that Montgomery County is now the only, I repeat that, the only jurisdiction, not even DC is closed down in the region, to prohibit indoor dining, County Executive Mark Elrich sent a proposal to the County Council to allow restaurants to reopen at 25% indoor capacity, but imposed a 1-hour time limit for patrons to dine. All right, here, shut up, sit down, eat your food, and get out of here. So, Linda, Zaid Barsoon, who owns Bacchus of Lebanon and Bethesda, called the proposal and the 1-hour time limit, honestly, it's a joke. What do you think?
The old adage, you get what you get and you don't get upset, comes to mind with the whole county council restaurant policy. I think we're lucky to be opening February 9th, 3.5 weeks after the district did so, which is kind of disgusting in and of itself. But I think at certain restaurants, the hour time limit makes sense. But if you're talking about fine dining, no. I did see, or any sort of sit down dining. I did see an interview this week, I think Channel 7 with Mark Elrich, and he was saying that it probably won't be enforced. But that being said, the sentiment really shows where the county's position is on economics and our restaurants and bars. And it's really sad that, so many good restaurants and bars that are individually family owned have already closed in this pandemic.
Well, Cynthia, Rob, picking up on that sentiment, Rob Blackwood, the general manager at Brickside Food and Drink on Cordell Avenue in Bethesda, which we call Restaurant Row, said this: we get it. There's a pandemic going on. We want it to be as safe as possible. But at the same time, if you want Cordell to close, keep doing what you're doing, because you're going to force every single bar and restaurant on Cordell Avenue to close in the next couple of months unless something changes. Are they capable of changing their policies?
Well, this is a classic rock and a hard place for the county, because they're looking at health data, and they're looking at how COVID spreads. And if you are in an enclosed space and you are not wearing a mask and you don't have proper ventilation and air exchange, that's a risky proposition. So, and also, yes, restaurant owners are also correct. They will go under. What we continue to have to do is to push the numbers down. Vaccinations need to increase so that the underlying public health conditions improve to a point where there's less risk of transmission and restaurants can be eased.
Well, that sounds great.
Diners.
But why don't we trust the citizenry of Montgomery County who are well educated, and why don't we trust the restaurant owners? I mean, across the river in Virginia, I went to Patsy's restaurant in Tyson's Corner. It's closer to my house than restaurants in Rockville. It takes 10 minutes. They're wide open. The only thing that they have is they have a 6-foot spacing requirement between tables.
Okay, so here's
people to do what they're comfortable with. If they want to go to a restaurant, they can. Why do you need government trying to superimpose this?
Because sometimes they do for us. The other thing that's on the horizon that we have to be aware of that may screw everything up is the variants for COVID that are now here. So those variants are much more transmissible and could really screw everything up by March. And the county has to be looking ahead. I'm very worried about that, given the slowness of the vaccination rate and what COVID variants might do to us in the next 6 weeks to 2 months. And that would screw everything up. And so we have to, it's a literal rock in a hard place. I don't know what else to say about it.
Linda, you think Cynthia's right?
I think about the data, it is right. But I think there's also a common sense approach to this. 25%, if a restaurant can pay its bills, admitting that many people is fine, but we should be open. We should have opened when DC did.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. We're gonna go to break right now. And when we come back from this short break, DC and neighboring Virginia counties are reopening schools. Why can't MCPS? Stay tuned. And welcome back. And during our break, the restaurant discussion continued. We all would welcome the day when we can eat freely in all of our restaurants in the locality. But this week, District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser reopened schools in the district. Fairfax County is phasing in their reopening plan over the next 4 weeks. And Loudoun County, responding to one parent's criticism that went viral on the internet, where this gentleman called the school board member cowards, voted a week later to reopen March 1st. Yet despite Governor Hogan's urgings, MCPS will only begin to reopen for small groups of students on that date. Cynthia, lots of reports from the CDC and others suggest that schools are not the super spreaders. So why not reopen faster?
Well, every time someone brings that up, there's also the accompanying caveat, which is that schools are not spreaders, but communities are. And where do you think the children come from? They come from communities. They come from communities. So if communities have a high rate of spread and a high rate of infection, that comes into the schools. So a second concern, of course, is school personnel and they're being able to be vaccinated because teachers have underlying health conditions too. Thirdly, schools have to make sure that, and I'm going to say it, I've already mentioned it, about ventilation and air exchange systems to make sure that those aren't contributors to any spread. And of course, PPE. And teachers are rightfully distrustful or skeptical that they will be equipped by their school systems and protected by their school systems so that they can safely, healthily teach.
Well, how is it then the private schools have been able to reopen, Cynthia?
Well, private schools are under different jurisdiction and they set their own standards. They have different standards. I will say,
but I mean, they have the same concerns.
Let me say one more thing about private schools. Public schools educate students who live in, many more students who live in multi-generational households, many more students who have parents who have to have public-facing jobs and are exposed. So private schools have a level of safety because of the kinds of families that they educate.
I think that's an oversimplified generalization of the students.
But there is truth
that
to
go
it.
to parochial and other private schools. Linda, if you want to join in on this particular discussion, please feel free to do so. Or I've got a question for you. It seems that the quality of education that our children are getting this past year is suspect. And even that noted educator, Joy Behar on The View, suggested that all school-age children should repeat the school year. Is that necessary?
I don't think it's necessary, particularly if it's coming from a top-down perspective. My children are in independent schools. And while they've had a little bit less work with their curriculum, I think taking the whole year off would be alarmist. I know with some of the public schools, for instance, Fairfax County lost a few weeks, I think 4 to 6 weeks last year in the spring. But otherwise, taking a year off is a bit unfounded and a bit drastic a solution, I think, at this point.
So, Cynthia, I want to go back to this idea about private versus public. I mean, there are those that advocate that we all go to an all voucher system, so that if you want to feel comfortable sending your kid to in-person learning at a private school, you can do so using your vouchers, or you can use those vouchers at a Montgomery County public school system. Why isn't that a good idea, instead of having parents and children being beholden to the teachers union?
Boy, you really picked the issue to push my buttons, Casey.
I know I do. I try to.
My point of view is that the American public school system is one of the most important democratization and boosts to our country that there is, compared to other countries that don't have strong, robust public school systems. It's a lifter of our populace and our citizenry, and has helped create the country that we have. I think what you're suggesting is a solution in search of a problem.
No.
I think that we have a good, strong, robust public school system, and that vouchers would not solve any problems that you think that we have.
Well, I think the Montgomery County school system could use more competition, because I don't agree with you that it's as wonderful as projected. But we're going to have to save that for another day, because we have a very important topic to talk about. And then this is that WTOP News reported last night that 3,000 people out of 1 million plus people in Montgomery County have signed a petition seeking to ban gasoline-powered leaf blowers. Linda, what do you think of that?
Well, I'm going to surprise you because even though I'm a Republican, I'm sympathetic to the petition, and I'm actually on the record publicly. I'm on the board of managers of Chevy Chase Village. We are right next to the District of Columbia. I live 5 blocks away. And when DC decided to ban gas-powered leaf blowers, we had the same issue come up before us, and we've agreed for our small village, which is a municipally incorporated town, that we would do so starting in 2022. The only opposition we've gotten so far was from one of the residents on behalf of the landscaping companies. I've asked a couple landscaping companies, and they said they're prepared to go electric because they serve DC, and I think Chevy Chase, one of the other, maybe town of Chevy Chase, has done it as well. But we'll see. So sorry to not toe the Republican line on this. I'm sympathetic.
I want to hear your voice.
And they're loud. They're loud and they smell inside the house. So I'd be a fan of going to electric.
Well, all right. So the one person who voted opposition to in Chevy Chase was a landscaper, and there was a landscaper speaking on the Larry O'Connor show on WMAL last night, and he said that the cost for landscaping services would go up dramatically due to higher labor costs, because the electric powered blowers aren't as efficient, and you're going to need more personnel to clean up not just leaves, but all the grass clippings and whatever, because it takes longer, and it's a time management issue. So, but Larry O'Connor described this as a first world problem, Cynthia. Is it?
Well, yes, it is a first world problem. And I agree with Linda. I mean,
Oh, come on.
powered leaf blower.
You grew up on a farm, Cynthia. You were
I
around.
did grow up on a farm, but now
you were around machinery all the time. You drove tractors. Come on.
no, my dad wouldn't let me drive the farm all. So
Didn't drive a little Ford.
he was probably afraid I'd drag race it across the North 40 or something. But no, I absolutely detest gas-powered leaf blowers, and I am for abolishing them and going electric. You
know how electric power is produced?
And they hurt your hearing. And every time I see a landscaper out working in a yard having to wear hearing protectors, you know, that does it for me.
Oh my gosh, you know, you guys want to turn back the wheels of progress. I'm so sorry. Anyway, stay tuned for Party Shots when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Cynthia Rubenstein.
Okay, well, this week is National School Counselors Week. And I have a special shout out to all those counselors who are working double time because they're dealing with the isolation and social and emotional needs of students in public school systems. For whom this is a really difficult time. Not only are students dealing with the difficulties of the virtual learning world, but they're also dealing with family circumstances that make their lives hard. Additionally, if you're a child, things that happen to you are harder to you because you're a child than if you're an adult and having to deal with these difficulties. So counselors have incredibly hard work to do right now. And once schools are open and kids are in the buildings, I think we're going to need more counselors to help bring kids back to a healthy state of mind.
Thank you, Cynthia. And Linda Willard, welcome to the show, by the way. I appreciate your appearing with us today. Now it's your time for your first parting shot.
I'm just going to continue with, because I didn't prepare anything formal, with some of the discussion we had and frustration at the vaccine situation. I was in a meeting and one of the participants was doing the math and said, at this rate, the county will have 90% of us vaccinated by 2 years. So 2023, here we come. I think instead of blaming others along the chain, whether it be the federal government or the state government or the local government, that our leaders need to take responsibility and take action and help govern. And help things be clearer to the general public so we can get back to school, work, and play. So,
well, I'm gonna pick up on that, and thank you. That's a great sentiment, because I have been trying to get the vaccination rescheduled, at least a schedule for it, and I'm surprised at the different variety of ways people have been going about trying to get registered. I'm more of a laissez-faire kind of guy. I hope to get it, and I hope to get it in due course. But I know some of my friends have been very aggressive about seeking out websites and making an effort to get vaccinated. And I think that goes to a little bit about the unintended consequences of how this was rolled out. The idea that you have multiple providers and multiple sites may have been a great idea, but it hasn't worked very well, and we need to improve the mechanism. I want to thank you both for being here today. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.